Hey guys, what's up? My name is Dom. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, movie content, and anything else in between because I like to do whatever I want on this channel, and tonight is going to be bookish content. For today's video, we're going to go over all the books I read in the month of May. I have so much to go over. Last year, I started a challenge called Manga May, and that's when I tried to read a volume of manga every day in the month of May. So ideally, I would have read 31 volumes by the end of the month. I did not achieve it last year, and I did not achieve it this year. Last year, I was close. I think I got up to at least 25. This year, there's so much going on in May. We love a good mentee bee, but because I had a few of them, so I could not read as much as I wanted. I think I only got through like between 13 to 15. I did not count, but that's still a lot of books to talk about, and there are also some like regular books that I read in the month of May because I do listen to audiobooks at work. So there's so much to talk about, so let's just jump right into it. Okay, so the first book I read in May is Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 3. This is the main manga series I was trying to get through in May, so you're going to see a lot of these volumes. I'm still currently reading it, but Jujutsu Kaisen takes place in a world with cursed energy. Cursed energy, cursed spirits. One day our main character, Yuji Itadori, gets attacked by them, so he has, or his friends get attacked, so he has to save them, and in order to do that, he swallows a finger of a very famous cursed spirit. So now he can be taken over by the spirit, and he's also gaining some cursed energy. So now he goes to the school called Jujutsu High, and it's kind of the adventures from there. I am feeling kind of, I don't want to say wishy-washy about the series anymore, but in the beginning I definitely was. I gave the first volume only 2.5 out of 5 stars, and my reasoning for that is because I think I just read it too late. It does feel very similar to Demon Slayer and Chainsaw Man, both of which I have consumed. I have read the entire Demon Slayer manga. I'm reading Chainsaw Man right now. So I think if I had read this series like first, I would like it more, but I do kind of have some issues with the pacing and blah, blah, blah. But Volume 2 I gave a higher rating, and Volume 3 I'm going to say right off the bat I gave 3 out of 5 stars. I obviously can't give a synopsis, but in this volume I did finally get to meet Nanami, who I understand is a fan favorite. He is attractive, but at this point in the series, I wasn't really like seeing why he's a fan favorite. One of my issues with this series is that I feel like the character development is lacking, and that is because the pacing is way too fast. This series is more so action than like the storytelling that happens in between that. So I feel very indifferent to a lot of these characters. But there's also more lore introduced, especially when it comes to the villains, and the villains in this series are my favorite characters. At this point, Jito was like my favorite already. And my last note on this is just that the pacing's incredibly fast. So again, 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Goodbye Eri by Tatsuki Fujimoto. This manga is by the author of Chainsaw Man, so I knew I was gonna read some weird shit. But this manga is about a boy named Yuta who climbs to the top of a building because he had plans to kill himself, but then he meets a weird girl named Eri, and she leads him on the path to making a movie. So that sounds like kind of a weird plot, but I did end up really enjoying this manga, and in fact I feel like I enjoy the concept of this more than I do Chainsaw Man. One of my biggest takeaways from this story was Yuta's introspection throughout the story, because in the beginning it's hard for him, and then you find out later why that is, as you do. And he had a lot of growing up to do, and he did it with Eri's help, but he did it on his own too, wasn't making excuses, was willing to grow. And this manga is only 200 pages long, and you know, with manga you do read it fast, so it was just, I thought his character development throughout the story was very well done given the short amount of time. And as a story, it was really fun too, just because the twists and turns make for an emotional roller coaster. I spent the first half of this manga feeling really sad for some characters and then angry at others, and then there's times of the manga where the characters you were sad for, you are now angry at. I was laughing with others, and then at one point I had a tear in my eye, but then like the 75% mark came along. And you know that white man blinking gif? Because at that 75% mark, there was a twist in the story where I like quite literally made that same face. I remember like inching forward towards the screen and going, what? And I had to reread it just because I didn't believe that's what was happening. It's gonna feel so goofy and stupid in the moment, but in retrospect and thinking about the rest of the story, it was actually weaved together very well. And then I spent like the last 10-20 pages of the story in tears. And when it comes to the art of this manga, I thought it was really cool that the majority of the panels were rectangular, because a lot of this is through Yuta's, not only his point of view, but it's in his phone's point of view. He's recording off it throughout the entire story. And I really like the moral of the story too. The moral I took away from it is how we choose to remember people is good for us. It's how we're able to move on. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 4. This is, I forgot to say the author in the beginning, but this is by Jige Akutami. This volume was mostly just fights, but I did really like the conversation between Yuji and Nanami about who gets to die, what kind of death, like what do you deserve, who was truly evil, who was truly good. It's one of those conversations. One thing I really appreciate about this series is Akutami does attempt at nuance, and one thing I like about Nanami as a character is that he recognizes Yuji and Ko are children. I feel like a lot of manga anime forget that, and therefore the 15-year-olds are acting like 30-year-olds, and it's normal for them to be on the same level as adults and for adults to treat them as if they're 30 years old. So Nanami being like, at the end of the day, yes, Yuji's powerful, but he is only 15, 16 years old. It is refreshing to see. So I gave this volume 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read volume 5, the Kyoto School is introduced, and they're doing this competition that's basically the Tri-Wizard tournament. There's constant back and forth between our characters that I thought was really funny, and I, of course, like the expansion of the lore. This one I actually gave 4 out of 5 stars. Then I finished a book called The Name of the Star by Maureen Johnson. I actually started this in April but could not finish it until May. So this is about a girl named Rory. She's originally from Louisiana here in the United States and decides to go to boarding school in London where a series of murders occurs. However, these murders are eerily similar to those of Jack the Ripper, and Rory does see the suspect. However, she's the only one who can see him. I had a lot of fun with this in the beginning of the book. I thought the first half of this book was really strong. I really liked our cast and crew, like the characters just seemed genuine. And I thought the introduction of information and like the slow revelation of the answers was well done. But the last half is when this book started to lose me. A new set of characters are introduced and are suddenly just more important than Rory's classmates, which, like, given the point of the story by the end, like, it makes sense, but why not introduce them right away? Because I just feel like Rory's friends at school, I felt like they were set up to be the main characters of this series. I thought they were set up to be, like, you know, her found family, her crew. But by the end of the book, they were just neglected and relegated to background characters. And I'm kind of going to spoil something, but you probably got this from the synopsis anyway. There are, like, paranormal aspects to the story, and weirdly enough, even though I picked up the book because that's what I was expecting and that's what I wanted, it's when it was finally introduced that I started losing interest. I think it's because it was introduced too late in the story, so therefore the two halves of this book feel like two different books. And when it came to finally, you know, taking down the murderer and, you know, he has his little speech about why he's doing everything, I thought his motive was interesting, original, refreshing, what have you. But his takedown, you know, the thing the book is leading up to, was just so anticlimactic, and I was really disappointed. So because of that, like, this book was just fine. It is a trilogy, and I looked up the synopses to the other two books, and it seems like they have nothing to do with why I picked up this one. Like, yes, there's paranormal activity, but like the second reason I picked up this book was because the Jack the Ripper theme. That Jack the Ripper theme has nothing to do with the last two books, so I don't think I'll be continuing this trilogy, but I did give this 3.5 out of 5 stars. So the next book I read is one of the worst books I read in 2025 so far, and it's the one I have the longest notes on because I am going to rant about it, and it's Princess on the Brink by Meg Cabot. This is one of the Princess Diary books. I think this is book 8. So The Princess Diaries is about a New York high schooler named Mia who finds out she's the next in line to the throne of Genovia. And it's her adventures from there. The books are very episodic, so I am able to give you a synopsis of this book. Mia is starting her junior year of high school, which is year 3 here in the United States. But everything feels like it's falling apart when her boyfriend Michael tells her that he may be moving to Japan for an undetermined amount of time. And let me tell you, the first thing about this book, when I put it down, like the first thing I thought of was everyone in this book fucking sucks. Mia, the main character, sucks, and I had to, you know, read this, this was an audiobook, so I had to listen to this in her point of view. Michael sucks in this, Lily fucking sucks. I haven't liked Lily for a while, and I definitely don't like her now, and she's worse than the next book. Grandma fucking sucks. There's a lot going on in this book that I just do not like. So, first of all, Mia in this book is incredibly selfish. And I know, like, part of this book is her learning that and coming to terms with that by the end of the book and trying to change her actions, but it was still flabbergasting to read. In the beginning, I was just like, girl, you're 16 years old. You shouldn't be acting like this. And when I say selfish, it was because Michael was like, hey, I have this opportunity, because now that Michael's in college, he's building this thing that's going to save millions of lives. And he's like, I have this opportunity to go to Japan to develop it, blah, blah, blah. And I just couldn't fathom, is it because I'm older and not a teenager? I don't know. But I just couldn't fathom, like, the idea of Mia telling him, no, you can't do that. And I feel like it's also because they weren't having like a good discussion about their feelings. So part of this was miscommunication. They just weren't being honest with each other. And then Mia, what really pissed me off, and I think it's why I hate this book so much, is that she was manipulating him. She was going to try to manipulate him into not doing this. And then part of her manipulation tactic was sex. And yes, she acknowledged that that's bad, but she kept going with it anyway. And another part of this book that drove me crazy, and I'll delve into it more later in the review, was just the purity culture surrounded by this book. And I understand purity culture was a big thing when these books were being published. They were being published in like the late 2000s, early 2010s, I believe. And I remember the days of Disney Channel stars of literal children wearing the fucking purity rings, letting the world know they're virgins. And I have a lot of opinions about purity culture, but it was definitely bleeding into this book. Because one of the things Mia did, she had a total freak out when finding out that Michael had sex with someone before her. And like, that just feels so icky to me, because I feel like we constantly, like us women, we constantly talk about how icky it is when men get mad at us for, you know, having boyfriends, having sex before someone that was him, because of that whole idea, like, save your virginity for your loved one, blah, blah, blah. And it's still not okay when a girl or a woman does it to a man, you know what I mean? And Michael explained himself, and Mia just wasn't getting it because she had in her head that like your virginity has to be saved for someone special. And Michael said it wasn't a special person, they were just friends fooling around. And I was on Michael's side for this. And it's kind of written in a way where you have, I don't want to say have to, but like you're somewhat supposed to sympathize with Mia, but I just couldn't. It was just so ridiculous to me. And I'm like, dude, I'm on Michael's side here. Girl, shut the fuck up. It's okay. But Michael is not innocent in this either. Because one of the things that was driving me a little crazy about him, starting with either the book before this or the book before them, they all bleed together after a while. Michael told Mia that I do expect us to have sex one day. And like, I get it, when you're in a committed relationship, one way for partners to show love to each other is through physical action. Like, I get it, but at times he did come off as pushy, and again, they just weren't having a good, honest conversation about their feelings. Like, as much as Mia pissed me off and was like manipulating him with sex, blah, 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 I did feel like gross for her that she was about to lose her virginity, not because she thought it was like a special time to do so. She wanted to lose her virginity just to keep Michael there. He also tells her that being separated will be good for them, like separated but still dating, so he's not even breaking up with her, and he tells her it's because we haven't had sex yet, and that's causing problems in this relationship. And it wouldn't cause problems if you guys just had an honest conversation about it. And as gross, again, as Mia's tactics were, it's this sex in general, Michael's feelings about having sex with her is the whole reason she felt the need to walk down that path in the first place. So you see what I mean? It's one of those books where like they're both awful, but for different reasons. And at separate points of the book, I was on someone's side, but for different reasons. I don't think it's a black or white situation. I do think it's a complicated situation. And I think my main gripe with it is that Mia, I as the reader wasn't convinced that she was ready to have sex, because like, yeah, I'm not like a super conservative person when it comes to sex. I don't give a shit if people wait until marriage. I don't give a shit if you don't wait until marriage. I'm all do you as long as everyone involved is a consenting adult. Obviously that's me speaking to adults, but I'm also not ignorant on the fact that high schoolers are having sex. I went to public school my entire life. I'm well aware kids are doing these things, but I'm also a big proponent of making sure you're comfortable during your first time. Comfortable and ready. Whether your first time is with your high school boyfriend, whether your first time is when you're married at 25, even if your first time is with a fucking hooker, like as long as you are comfortable and ready, that's all I ask of you. And I just was not convinced that Mia was ready to do this. And just given Michael's past actions and past books, I don't think he would have properly reassured her. I'm gonna go to the next part of my rant about this, and that it is just the usage of purity culture and this This book is clearly a product of its time. It went away for a while, but it is bleeding back into society from what I saw on Twitter before I stopped using it and from what I'm seeing on Instagram nowadays. I truly think this emphasis on purity culture is causing more harm than good. One of the reasons Mia is so angry about Michael having sex with someone who's not her when they weren't even dating yet, put the concept of virginity on such a high pedestal. It pisses me off because, guys, you're not gonna change as a person having sex before marriage. You're not gross, you're not dirty, you're not a whore if you don't decide to wait until marriage. And this is gonna go back to me saying, when it comes to having sex for the first time, I want, no matter what, I just want you to be ready, because one of the reasons this book just felt so gross to me and the way Mia was talking about her precious gift, it just enforces that idea that a woman's virginity, that a woman's body is for a man when it should be for herself. And yes, that goes to say that a man's virginity and his body should be for himself, but like, I'm just gonna put a lot of emphasis on girls, women, one, because I am one, two, because like, that's the bullshit I heard growing up, and because 3, Mia is a girl. And I know I shared my personal views on that a lot, but another thing that gets me about this book, religion's not even mentioned in this book. Her views on her precious gift and blah 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 has nothing to do with Christianity, has nothing to do with Judaism, which is because Michael's Jewish. She got all this information from all the magazines and romance novels she was reading, so I guess that goes back to, that could be commentary too. And another thing that kind of just pissed me off about Mia and Michael's relationship in this book is like, it boils down to just personal values. I'm sure there's people watching this that don't agree with me about my values of sex, and I get that. So that's why I personally believe like that's a core value when it comes to relationships. And if your core value is not matching, then that relationship's not going to work, and it's a time to go your separate ways and find someone who matches your core value. Someone thinks it's a sacred act and another person thinks it's just meaningless fun, they're not gonna have a good time together. Have a good, honest conversation about it, yes, like communicate, especially if it's a long-term relationship, but like, at the same time, I'm also not for, when it comes to core values like that, like I'm not the type of person to convince you to change your mind. To me, that's a sign it's time to break up and go our separate ways, and that's like what I was screaming in my head throughout this book. Like, that is a sign you two are not gonna work out, and it's okay, because you're a high school relationship. A lot of high school relationships don't work out. You're gonna grow and change as a person. It's time to break up and just find someone new. So I did give this 2 stars. I was pushing for like 1.5. I was actually pushing for 1 star, but it got 0.5 of a star because it did not have a cookie cutter ending like the other books did. And another 0.5 was because there was a scene with her dad that I really liked. Her dad being in love is kind of cute. So overall, I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. Okay, so the next book is a manga, and that is The God's Lie by Kori Ozaki. This is about a boy named Natsuru who befriends a girl named Rio, and he plays hooky from camp and decides to spend the summer with her. However, a dark secret threatens to upend their friendship. So this is another really good one. I did really like our friendship between the 2 main characters. I thought there was a solid foundation between the 2, and they played off each other really well. And you could see their friendship grow stronger in like the smallest details, whether it was because of like a little gift they gave each other or things they remembered about each other, and most importantly, just how Natsuru was treating Ryo's little brother. I was expecting a more shocking plot twist, but in a way I kind of saw it coming. But then also, I thought it was actually more sad than shocking, just because I think a child should not have to go through any of this. And the ending brought a tear to my eye. And I really like the messaging behind the title itself and just the moral I took away from this story. And it's that you kind of, sometimes you just say things, whether they're the lie or the truth, because you want to give someone hope. My main gripe with this manga, because I did not give it 5 out of 5 stars, is that it's too short. And because of that, the pacing is going to seem a little fast, and there's just not a lot of room for characterization. So as much as I liked our characters, I think I more so liked the idea of them, because in the end, I just felt more so indifferent to them as people. So I think this would have worked a lot better if rather than 1 volume long, it was maybe like 2 or 3. I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 6. This was really fun because I really like seeing Yuji and Toto's interactions. There's also a character that's a metalhead, and I thought that was hilarious. And this was around the time where I realized I was in the story more so for the action and the art than like the actual characters, because again, this story is just way too fast-paced, and I'm not really feeling a connection to anyone. I don't really care for anyone. But I'm I'm having fun watching this unfold. So I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read volume 7. We're in a new arc. We get more information about Megumi and some character development. However, all the critiques I have for volume 6 I still have for this one. So I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Volume 8 is when I started giving the series a better rating. Yuji is now in a moral conundrum. I cannot tell you what that is because spoilers, and I love when a character is in a good moral conundrum. I really like the girlhood moment between Nobara and Yuko. There's a lot of U's in this name because you got Yuji, Yuko, there's a Yuta, and I think there's actually a Yuki as well. There's just a lot of U's, and it's hard to keep up with. But then we also get the beginnings of the Jito and Gojo backstory, and I love Jito. So I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Anohana Volume 1 by Mari Okada. I don't know what the actual manga name is. I grabbed the anime name just because I know the manga name's like this long. And this is about a guy who gets visited by a ghost spirit who happens to be a friend that died many years ago. And she wants to fulfill her wish. However, she doesn't remember what that wish is. Now all of her former friends who have since separated since her death need to come together and try to decide what this wish was. I thought this was a very strong start to the story because I do understand this is apparently like really sad. I've been told by multiple people if I watch the anime, make sure I'm not in a depressed mood. And we're told that all these kids used to be friends. And I do like the way the authors show that they're not. Like for example, they can't give each other nicknames anymore. They have to call each other, they're forcing everyone to call each other by their last names. And I understand in Japan, like names are a big deal. And there's just so many like bits and pieces here. Like how did she die? How did the one girl die? How did she get here? How important is the wish? And I have one more volume left and I still have no hints as to why. So I'm still on the edge of my seat trying to figure that out. And there's so many scenes in the present day where you're watching them bond over something, trying to figure out what this wish is. And I just thought that was so cute because it reminds me of the saying that true friends just pick up where they left off. So right off the bat, like watching the two characters play video games after, you know, years of not speaking to one another, like you know in the end this friendship group is gonna be together again, and it's gonna feel like how it did when they were kids. And then this volume specifically had a very beautiful ending, so I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 9, and we get more background on my favorite character, Jito. I love to see it. We find out that Megumi's father was actually a threat, and we get to find out more about him, and we finally learn what Jito's motive is, because I'm like, if you used to be friends with Gojo, what the fuck happened? Why are you the villain now? I will say my gripe, once again, the fucking pacing, but 2, I feel like like Fushiguro is like a very popular character in the series, and yet I don't care about him because I feel like I wasn't given enough time to care. So I gave this 3.75 out of 5 stars. Then I read Lockdown by Alexander Gordon Smith. This is about a boy named Alex who is sent to Furnace Penitentiary, which is a prison where young boys serve a life sentence. He's surrounded by these giants in big suits, people with gas masks, and this overpowered warden that you can't look in the eye. And when he notices that boys are starting to disappear, he plans his escape. Now, that sounds great and something I would have absolutely loved when I was 13. And honestly, it's one of the reasons I picked up this book. This is like a backlog book because I remember seeing this title, not this title, but at least like this cover everywhere from book fairs. So I feel like I should have loved this book. However, I was not a fan. It's actually one of the worst books I read this year. And I can't give a proper critique on why that is. Like, you ever read a book that has everything you want and like you go into it thinking it's going to be 5 stars, but for some reason it just doesn't click with you? This did not click. I could not connect to our main character for some strange reason. I didn't want him to be in this place, obviously, but I also just wasn't rooting for him either. So it begs the question, like, am I too old for this? Did I miss some window? But I don't know, because I was going through Goodreads and a lot of adults still seem to like this book. And that is quite literally all I have to say this book. It just didn't click with me. I feel like such a bad critiquer, because how are you guys supposed to know why I didn't like this book? Like, this is such a stupid review, but like it just didn't click for me. I'm just gonna come to the conclusion that I'm too old. I missed a window. And this is apparently a 5-book long series, so unless I run out of ideas on Audible, I will not be continuing. So I gave this 2.5 out of 5 stars. Next, we're going back a bit in the Jujutsu Kaisen world because I did read the prequel, Volume 0. This one I can actually kind of give you more of a synopsis because this has nothing to do with Yuji. This is about a character named Yuta who started at Jujutsu High before Yuji did. I actually enjoyed this a lot more than I did volume 1, and I feel like maybe I should have started with this. I definitely would have had a better first impression if I started with this, and I think it's just because I actually like Yuta as a character more than Yuji. And I think my main reason is because Yuta does not feel as overpowered as Yuji does. Granted, Yuta as a character is overpowered, but he's overpowered against his will, and he's trying to come to terms with that and trying to find a balance, whereas Yuji, I feel like he was pretty overpowered from the start, and Yuji uses that to his advantage, so he's not really losing fights as of yet where I am in the series. I just feel like there were more stakes with Yuta, so therefore the fights were more exciting. This volume though still has the same issues as the main story, my issue being the fucking pacing. Moves way too fast, so like not a lot of time to connect with the characters. However, it is more forgivable in this because this is a one-shot that I think was used in order to advertise JJK. So I did give this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Anohana Volume 2 by Mariokazi Okada, my bad. And this is going to be a shorter review than Volume 1 just because my thoughts are so similar to that volume. There is a moment that caused me to raise an eyebrow, and I'm still confused on why it was needed, but there's still a good sense of mystery, and it's killing me that we don't have answers yet. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 10, and I am starting the infamous Shibuya arc. This volume is a very Gojo heavy volume, and he's actually challenged because talk about an overpowered character. This guy can do nothing wrong, he is unstoppable, but now shit is going down. So I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, 3 more books to talk about. One of them being Princess Mia by Meg Cabot, which is book 9 of the Princess Diaries. And sirs, ma'ams, and theys, we are so back, because right off the bat I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. So this one is about Mia being depressed because Michael did go off to Japan. She realized her wrongs from book 8, and now she's upset because she essentially doesn't have a boyfriend anymore. I do believe, I can't remember if it's at the end of book 8 or the beginning of this book that they officially break up. And not only is that happening, but she just feels like too many things are happening at once because she also has to speak at some women's gathering and then do her princess duties. It's a lot on a 16-year-old's shoulders. One of my favorite things about this book is that Mia is not with Michael. I like that they're not together because now she can grow as a person without a boyfriend at her side, so she can learn more about herself, which I do think is really important for her as a character, because for a while any growing she did would always revert back to Michael. It was always about Michael, like all of her thoughts and feelings, and now she can finally worry about herself. I do have views of Mia's depression in this book as a 27-year-old reading it. There were times, this is gonna sound mean, there were times where she came off a bit pathetic, especially because she's in bed all day over her high school breakup. However, I will say this does feel very typical for a 16-year-old, so I am going to forgive it. And this book actually introduced my favorite subplot of the series. She's learning a lot about her family history because she finds this family document from a princess of years gone by, and like she was giving us more and more info about the people before her, and I actually really liked learning about that. I would totally read a book about the Genovian royalty and all those people who came before her and who she's inspired by. And I hope Meg Cabot explores this more in future books. When it comes to Mia's friends, there is now a divide because she's not speaking to Lily anymore. And I am gonna say it, Tina is a much better friend. The moment Tina was introduced, I thought she was a much better friend. She's not without her faults because she can be a bit of an enabler, but that flaw aside, she has always been much nicer to Mia. And then one thing I do respect about Tina in this book is that, you know, she is also friends with Lily, and then when that divide happened between the two, she didn't stop speaking to either of them. The only reason Tina does not speak to Lily is because Lily stopped speaking to Tina. And that brings me to the topic of Lily, because girl, did she piss me the fuck off in this book. There's one thing that she does in this book, and I don't know how Meg Cabot is gonna like recover from this. She does something to Mia that is so fucking awful. I just don't see how Mia and Lily's friendship can come back from what she did. Like, I actually don't want Meg Cabot to have these two be friends again. I think the situation with Lily could actually be an excellent plot device of showing that, you know, sometimes your high school friends don't make it into adulthood. Like that is normal. I feel like most of us can relate to that, and it's a good way to show that in these books. Just because if you do what Lily did to Mia in this book, like, you are fucking dead to me. If Meg Cabot fixes their relationship in the future and has them be best friends again, she needs to step on a Lego. No, and when I tell you I was shocked about what Lily did, because first of all, yeah, best friends, why would you do this to someone? Second, part of the plot in this book is that Lana decides to be friends with Mia. Mind you, Lana was Mia's bully in the 8 books before this, and it's kind of funny. It goes back to Mia needing to grow a backbone. Lana just inserted herself in Mia's life, but I think one of the things, and Mia actually mentions this too, so I do agree with her. I think one of the things I find this amusing is because Lana is self-aware about herself. In a way, I do respect that. But what I was shocked about, I'm reading this book thinking, so I am kind of spoiling this, but I'm thinking this twist that happens, it was Lana who did it. I was 100% expecting that. Like, girl, Lana's not your friend. She's plotting behind your back. But it wasn't her. It was Lily. And actually, Lana was one of the first people to comfort Mia when the twist happened. And I don't know how I feel about Lana and Mia becoming friends just because of the way Lana treated Mia in the beginning, but it at least makes for good entertainment, I guess. And I like the ending of this. It was very hopeful and uplifting. So again, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, and I am interested to see how Mia and JP grow closer together. Then I read Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 11. There's a plot twist about my favorite character that had my jaw on the floor. So I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read in the month of May is Volume 12 of Jujutsu Kaisen. I really like the fights in this one, especially Yuji and Chozo's. I really like Chozo's character design and his curse technique. Him and his brothers, I thought, just had such a cool one. I do want to say, Mei and her brother have a very strange relationship. But I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I'm going to speak very fast now just because my camera is screaming at me that the battery is dying. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below any thoughts you have. If you guys are also reading any of this, if you disagree with me on stuff, let's chat. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. Without further ado, I'm going to peace out and I'll see you guys later. Ciao, tutti.